In today's video, we're going to answer one of the hardest questions that tennis players ask themselves every day when they're playing points. And that question is, when should you hit hard? When should you hit soft? When should you just neutralize the ball? Now the answer to that is actually quite simple, because the only question you have to ask yourself on a consistent basis while you're playing to answer this question is, are you able to set up and are you able to, find your balance before you actually hit your shot? If you can do that and feel like you're comfortable with your timing and you know that before you actually hit the ball, then you know you're in a position to hit the ball hard or to attack, to play offensive. If that's not the case at all and you feel like you can't set up, you can't find your balance, and you won't be comfortable hitting that shot, you're probably in the defense. So that means you shouldn't hit the ball very hard. You should just try your best to hit the shot that you can hit with the highest quality that still at least neutralizes your opponent if possible. If you can't do that, play a defensive shot, but again, try to hit the best quality defensive shot that you could possibly hit. If you're able to set up and you're able to balance, that does not mean that you're now going to hit at 100% power. It means you're trying to hit a shot that you can comfortably put in 9 out of 10 times. The highest quality shot that you can create while still putting it in 9 out of 10 times is the shot that you should choose when you're in the offense. Now what do you do if you're just neutralizing? If you can kind of set up, you can kind of balance, but you're not completely comfortable with the time you have left to set up your shot? Well, now you should hit the ball maybe at 50 or 60% just to neutralize the opponent. Be as aggressive as you can without having your rate of mistakes go up. That's very, very important that you make the right decision depending on the situation you're in, not depending on the ball that is coming to you. So this is what most people do. They see that a ball comes up to them really high and maybe even short, and now they feel the need to actually hit that ball really hard because it seems like such a simple ball. That's the misconception that most people are in. Just because a ball could be theoretically easy for you to hit hard doesn't mean that you're able to set up early, that you're able to find your balance, and that you're able to hit a comfortable shot. So the most easy looking shots could become challenging enough to push you off position, to push you off balance, or to not give you enough time if a ball is just really far away from you. So in those moments, you have to again make that decision how hard you can actually hit it without going for too much risk. Because if you're not able to balance, you're not able to set up your feet, you're not going to be able to put the ball in on a consistent basis with a higher pace. So you need to choose a lower pace to make sure that you don't miss unnecessarily. Now if you manage to somehow set up early, balance early on a tough shot that your opponent hit. So for example, it could be very fast ball, very spinny ball, ball that's very close to the sidelines, whatever it is. But you still manage to do all those things. You are still technically in the offense. Whoever can set up their feet and is ready in time, has enough time to hit, is able to hit a powerful shot or at least an offensive shot, whatever level you're at. So for example, if you're only a 3.5 player, then you know that obviously your offensive capabilities are not the same as Roger Federer's. But that doesn't mean that you can't be offensive. You can still hit an offensive ball, putting your opponent under pressure, but that has to stay within your abilities. So whatever you consider offensive is what you would use in that moment when you can set up very well. One more thing to keep in mind, no matter the level you're at, every single person has a different ability or capability for being offensive or defensive or neutral. So whatever your shot is that you can create that causes your opponent to either be under pressure, to be neutralized, or to not be in as much of an offensive position is what you should count for these moments. So if you're in a good position and you can only hit the ball at 50 miles an hour, even if you're in a perfect position without missing too many, then that's the power that you should choose. You should not go beyond your abilities, and you should make sure that you understand which moment requires that offense and which moment requires defense or maybe just a neutral shot, depending on how you can set up for this ball. Even if you keep these things in mind, there might be one situation that pops up pretty consistently, and that is a short ball or a higher ball where you have to move very far and you know you can't really set up well, you can't get your balance done before you hit. So if we're just taking a look at the guideline that I gave you guys in the beginning of this video, you should not be hitting it very hard. However, if your opponent pushed you kind of off the court or, put you in a position where you're not really in a favorable position after your shot, so for example, it could be short ball that's kind of in the backhand corner. In those moments, you have to come up with something, because if you just hit a shot that would be logical depending on the position you're in, you would give your opponent an easy shot to finish off the point. So in those moments, you have to come up with something that doesn't require a whole lot of risk, but that keeps you in the rally at least. If, on the other hand, you feel like you have to hit that ball so hard that your opponent can't do anything because you're so far off the court, obviously that is also an option that some pros even sometimes go for. So you have to figure out in those specific moments what's the best scenario that you can come up with the least amount of risk, despite the fact that you cannot set up your feet very well and you cannot get balance. Aside from that scenario, these guidelines work for almost every single shot, and it shows you that the real priority should be for you to actually set up yourself every single time so you can keep the balance and thus also the offense in your rally. Because if you can't find your balance, you can't find your feet before you hit the shot, you shouldn't be the person dictating this rally. So in tennis, it's mostly about who can set up better, who can find your balance better, and that's the person that dictates the outcome of the match. Now some players, on the other hand, they decide to go for bigger shots even if they're off position. And those are usually the players that you see, they can hit one amazing shot that looks like Federer hit it, but they're missing a lot of shots in between, and thus they're not winning very many matches. So if you're trying to win a lot of matches, make sure that you always try to make sure to set up your feet, balance, and then swing with an offensive shot in the process. If you can't do that, if you can't balance, you can't set up your feet, keep the ball softer, neutralize your opponent first. If you can't even do that, come up with the best defensive option that you have. And here we have a quick example where the return player in this case does not have enough time to set up and get balanced, and thus hits a defensive return. And in the process, Alcaraz is able to set up very well and get balanced right here, hits an aggressive shot, and then from this point on, both players, because Alcaraz came to the net, are just improvising on every single shot because you're just barely getting to the ball, not really getting into position. In this case, Alcaraz in the end loses the point because he couldn't set up well enough or hit the ball well enough.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon.